Welcome. So glad you're here this morning. Glad to be back. I was out on vacation for, a couple of weeks. Super stoked, super excited that Steve and Chuck came out and preached and did a great job. I was telling Steve earlier, I was like, man, that means I can take like more extended vacation. It's like, no. So, but I'm so glad to be back and seeing you guys, being part of this church family here with you. If you brought your Bible, I want you to go ahead and go to Matthew chapter 19, verse 3. Matthew chapter 19, verse 3. I'm going to take 4 weeks I'm going to give myself 4 weeks to be able to explore two issues. One, the issue of marriage or the uniqueness of marriage relationships, but then also take some weeks to talk about singlehood as well. Talk about both of those things. I'm going to take a break from the Gospel of Mark, where we've been looking at not only the mission and the life of Jesus, and we're going to hone in, go deeper on the very topic that I left you with the last time I preached, which was marriage, and then go from there for a couple of weeks. And you might be asking yourself, like, why this? Why should we do this? Last time that we were together, that I was here with you, Jesus had been asked a question. The question it was like, can any person divorce for any reason? And Jesus gave his answer. And in that answer was this drawback or going back to the original design of relationships and how relationships were designed to work and operate as. And so he has that discussion with the disciples. And then in the Gospel of Matthew, actually, he goes a little bit further and he talks about singlehood. Like, what do you do with that? Now, the challenges that we have in our culture today regarding marriage and singlehood are the very same challenges that Jesus saw back in the first century. And if you're single or single again, either you're single because you're a teenager or single again because you went through a divorce, or maybe single because you're a widow, you have challenges, and you know that better than I do. You know it very, very well, what it means to be single in a world that the definition of singlehood or the benefits of singlehood are like, yeah, you're single, party out, man. But but the Bible doesn't talk about that. What is God's perspective of singlehood? And I know there's quite a bit of singles here, and so I want to address that during this series, but then also marriage, because we live in a culture that is very similar to the first century, which is, you get married, and then if it doesn't work out, you move on to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, and the next, So I want to be able to build your relationships for those of you who are married, and I want to encourage those of you who are single, because both of those things are a gift from God. Marriage is a gift from God, and singlehood is also a gift from God. So for us, the main thing that we ought to do is really learn from the gifts, and like, what has God's designed for each one of those gifts? Because in Jesus' vocabulary, there's only really two categories. You're married or you're single. I know some people see themselves like, well, I'm a widow. No, you're single. Oh, I'm a divorcee. No, you're single, right? So those the two categories that Jesus addresses, and then the scriptures, particularly the New Testament, addresses as well. So we're going to look at those two things and explore it with you. And I think it's going to be a fun ride, and I think we're all going to learn something. Now, if you're here this morning, you're thinking, I'm a teen, Jesse. Like, why are we talking about marriage and singlehood and all these things? One day, perhaps, you may get married, right? Or I'll put it this way. For those of you who are single again, you're thinking, why should I learn about marriage? It's because in this world, we will all interact with the opposite sex. Can we all agree on that? Like, if you work somewhere, there's somebody with the opposite sex where you work, unless you work at an all-women's college or whatever, Like, we all have interrelational experiences with the opposite sex. For those of you who are grandparents, you have grandchildren. And it's to your benefit to actually learn how your grandchildren, how to relate with them. If you're a grandma and you have, grandkids that are boys, it's probably best for you to know how boys think and the way they operate and the way they do life, right? Same thing. If you're a grandpa and you have girls for granddaughters, when they turn 14, I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have a 17-year-old boy, a 16-year-old boy, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 7-year-old daughter. I know, we did have cable, by the way, for those of you who are wondering. It's just the way it worked out. We have 4 kids. You know, I have a 14-year-old daughter. It's to my interest to be able to learn how she thinks and how she does life, because I'm not a girl, she is. And so we're all going to benefit from this. And so I want you to go to Matthew chapter 19, verse 3. We're going to pick up on the discussion that Jesus had with his disciples and with the Pharisees of the day, and then piggyback off of that and go into today's message. So verse 3, some Pharisees came and tried to trap him with this question. Should a man be allowed to divorce his wife for just any reason? Haven't you read the scriptures? Jesus replied. They record that from the beginning, God made them male and female. And he said, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. This is the whole leave, you cleave, and you become one. And so he's going back to the original. He's explaining the original intent in verse 6, since they are no longer two, but one. 1 plus 1 equals 1. Let no one split apart what God has joined together. So the original design of marriage is a lifetime commitment where the couple leaves and cleaves and becomes one. Verse 7. Now, but by the way, I say the original intent. It doesn't always work that way. There's reasons for that. Verse 7, it says that, then why did Moses say in the law that a man could give his wife a written notice of divorce and send her away? They asked. Verse 8, Jesus replied, Moses permitted divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts, but it was not what God had originally intended. And I tell you this, whoever divorces his wife and marries someone else commits adultery, unless his wife has been unfaithful. Now, I've already talked about this several weeks ago. The last time I preached, I talked about divorce, all the dynamics that go with it, the when, who, all that kind of stuff. If you want more on that, kind of rewind the tape to 4 weeks ago, and I've already preached on that, so I'm not going to go deeper into it. Verse 10, Jesus' disciples then said to him, if this is the case, what's the case? That the original intention of God is for two people to come together and be committed for a lifetime. If this is the case, the disciples are asking, if this is the case, it is better not to marry. Now, pause here for just a second. Realize that his disciples include 11 dudes that are teenagers. They're teenagers, and only one of them out of the 12, Peter, is married. So the teens in the group, they're like, hey, this sounds tough. Like being committed to one person for a lifetime. Man, isn't it better just not to get married? Thinking like a teenager. Isn't it better just not to get married, to be single? And then Jesus responds, not everyone can accept the statement. What statement? That it is better not to marry. So only those whom God helps. So in other words, God helps people that are committed to singlehood as much as he helps people that are committed in their relationship. Some are born as eunuchs, some have been made eunuchs by others, and some choose not to marry. In some of your translations, it says some choose to be eunuchs, but the idea is that some choose not to be married. For the sake, this is important, this is the purpose, for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, let anyone accept this who can. Understanding that this is difficult to understand, difficult to accept, it says let anybody who can accept it, accept it. The idea is that to remain single is also a good path to choose if you enter it with a purpose. It's also a good path to choose. That flies against our culture. Flies against it. If you're here this morning, you're single, you totally get it. Because in our culture, if you're single, it's like, what's the matter with you? You can't find a man? What's the matter with you? You can't find a woman? Right? And there's this pressure, cultural pressure against you that you should get married. And there's this huge immense pressure if you're single. right? Even as you, for those of you who are teenagers or growing up, and the time is coming, you have a girlfriend, and you're thinking, okay, should I marry? When should I marry? All that kind of stuff. You still have those pressures. Everything builds towards those pressures. Even if you're a widow, when your husband passes and he dies for whatever reason, and the cultural pressure is there. Are you going to get married again? Are you going to have kids or not? There's a lot of pressure. Now, marriage is the same thing. The cultural pressure is like, hey, man, just sayonara. It doesn't work out. You guys are fighting, little fight or whatever. Just move on to the next. All that to say that it's important for us. It's very important for us to really get a good grasp of how to remain together if you're married and how to live in a way that honors God if you're single. So let's get started. First, the marriage. That's where I want to tackle at least for the next 2 weeks. I want to tackle marriage first and then singlehood. And I believe everybody here can benefit from this. And so the first question I want to answer is, how do you live out the original design by protecting oneness? How do you protect oneness? The oneness that Jesus says, you remember the original, that you leave your mother and father, right? You leave them, you cling to your spouse, and you become one. How do you protect that oneness? Because everything in this world is going to try and destroy your oneness. The culture is insanely radical about trying to destroy your oneness. So how do you protect it? I'm going to give you 5 basic principles, 5 things we've got to understand in order for us to protect that oneness. The first thing is this. Men and women are wired different. We're wired different. And you might be thinking, oh, no, duh. You know by experience. You know that is the case. We're just wired different. Let me give you 2 scenarios to kind of explain this. First scenario, woman, she may have had a baby or 2, 3, or maybe 4, I don't know. Had a couple babies, and she's like, she feels overweight. Weight, she's not able to lose the weight like she used to be able to lose it, and she feels very insecure. She feels like, oh, I'm just overweight. She keeps on saying that. At home, husband is listening to this, and I think a good husband, maybe he goes through Amazon and says, I want to help her out. Let me get her a book. Maybe this guy likes to read, like very few of us do. He says, I'm going to get her a book because she likes to read. And I'm going to get this book. When I get it, I'm going to put it right there besides her recliner so she could read it. So finally, this guy finds the book, searching through Amazon. And the title of the book is How to Lose Weight and Attract Your Mate. You see, you ladies already know where I'm headed with this, right? He's being helpful. He doesn't know any better. He's like, I want to help my baby, right? I want to help her out. So this book looks like it has 5-star reviews by women. So he gets the book. Night comes, he puts it right there by the stand next to the recliner. She comes in, sits down, notices the book. As soon as she sees the book, she gets up. It's like, what is this? What did you get me? Of course, she's confused. He's looking at her like, I got you a book, to help you. She's mad. She gets up. She's like almost like in a pouty mood. She goes into her bedroom. She slams the door, and he's left behind thinking, what just happened? Right? Maybe some of you have been in similar situations like that. She reacts by being closed off towards him now. Right? And he's thinking, what did I do? Let me give you another scenario. Times are tight. Financially, things are tight, right? The same couple, right? He's working hard. He's trying to make the money. He's trying to pay the bills, and he's working really hard. He walks in after a long day of work. He finally walks in. He's tired. He walks in the door. You can tell he's been sweating a lot because he's been working really hard. And she's on the phone. And she's on the phone with Mama, his mother-in-law. It's like, Mom, I just want to say, we're really struggling right now financially. And could you help us out? And the other line, Mama's saying, Absolutely. Well, I'll send you some money so you can pay your rent. She hangs up the phone. She turns around, and he is glaring at her, and he's like, what did you do, woman? Why did you call your mom? Why are you getting her involved in our business? Why did you have to call her? And all the while, she's looking at him like, what did I do wrong? Right? I was trying to be helpful. And so he reacts very abrasively and very harshly to the fact that she was calling mama and asking for some help to help the family. What just happened? Why the reactions that they have? What just happened? This is what happened. She's going to break it down for you guys. In the diet book, when he got the diet book and she saw the diet book, this is what she heard. I don't love you. That's not what he said, but that's what she heard. She heard, I don't love you. What happened with the phone call? When he walked in and heard that phone call, what he heard was, I don't respect you. That's not what she was doing. That's not what she was saying at all. But that's what he heard. I don't respect you. See, these are two well-intentioned people that are hearing something that is radically different than what is actually being said. And this is part of the reason. I want you to imagine. Well, actually, I don't even want you to imagine. I'm going to show you. You have these headsets that I brought. One of them is blue headset, and because blue kind of stands for boy. So we men, we hear blue, right? When men talk to the other man, we're wearing a blue headset. And that's what we understand. When you talk blue to me, I understand you're blue, right? I have blue headset. I hear blue. But women, or rather guys, women aren't wearing blue headsets. When you talk, they're hearing pink. Is their pink headset. Everything you're saying, they're filtering it through this pink hearing, this pink headset. And so no matter what you said, what she heard was, I am not loved by him. That's what she heard. Why? Because she was wearing her pink headset. Because after all, she is a woman and he is a man. And so when he speaks, don't have to imagine it. When he speaks blue, and he says, I love you, baby. I love you so much that I'm going to get you that book. That ain't what she's hearing at all. It's not what she's hearing. If he was getting his friend that book, he'd be like, dude, thank you so much, man. I needed that book. Appreciate it. But she ain't blue. And when she was talking with Mama, she was a country girl. Mama. She's from Gonzales. Mama. We need some money, right? He's not hearing it from a pink headset. He's man. He's hearing it from a blue. And all he hears is, I can't provide for my family. I'm embarrassed now because she knows that I can't do it financially. And that's what he hears. He hears disrespect. And that is what's going on. And it happens, folks. Folks, it happens every single day. In every single household. That scenario is happening. It probably happened this morning, maybe. Or maybe it'll happen tonight. Or the next conversation with somebody of the opposite sex. You're like, what just happened? Well, she's wearing it or he's wearing a different type of headset. And you're speaking off a different funnel that she can hear or he can hear. So let's decode the mystery here for just a bit. Let's just decode this thing. And I want to take you to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, because I think this is probably the most important passages as it relates to relationships. So important that I use it in premarital counseling. That's my go-to passage in premarital counseling and also in marriage counseling. Because in this one verse, you see the decoding of the mystery that it is man and woman in the way they communicate. And what is it? Well, Ephesians 5:33. It says, however, each one of you also must love his wife. Talking to men, must love his wife. It's a command. It's not a suggestion. Must love his wife. How? As he loves himself. Now, you got to admit, guys, we do love ourselves. And you may be thinking, no, I have a low self-esteem. No, just hear me out. We know we love ourselves, not each other. We know we love ourselves because we eat. We take care of our bodies. Some more than others, but we eat, right? And then when we think we had enough, what do? I'll go for a little bit more. Seconds. We're taking care of ourselves. And then, just as your stomach feels like it's going to pop, you're like, man, I could go for some dessert. Yeah, you know what that's called? That's called loving yourself. You're feeding yourself. And so he says, love your wife as he loves himself. And the wife must love her husband. No, it didn't say that, did it? Doesn't say that. Perfect opportunity for Paul to say, wives, do the same thing. Love your husbands. Why? It comes natural for women most of the time to just nurture and love. No. The call for woman is to respect her husband. Interesting, isn't it? In this passage, actually, several times it says, love your wives, love your wives, love your wife, and then only one little verse for women because they get it faster than men do. And it's simple as you respect your husband. That's it. Point blank, period. That's all you need to remember. For women, you're already like, okay, sermon done. I can leave now, but my husband can stay because you've already got it, right? For us guys, we have to kind of compute that, kind of synthesize that, and kind of get it a little bit maybe from a different angle. But that's the bottom line, is that there's this love and respect. And this is the bottom line on that. And this is it. The deepest value, her deepest value, is the need for love. That's the deepest value. The deepest need. At the core of her is this deep desire to be loved by the people around her. Deep, deep, deep desire. The primary desire is to be loved. Now, I say primary. It doesn't mean that there's not other needs there, but that's the primary, fundamental, foundational need of her. His deepest value is the need for respect. The need for honor, the need to know that he is being respected of the people around him. It doesn't mean that he doesn't need other stuff, but the primary need, the core foundational need that he has is the need for respect. Her deepest need is the need for love. His deepest need is the need for respect. Especially by the women he loves. By women, I mean like the spouse or even the kids, the daughters. But also boys. It's just this need of respect. And it's like oxygen. I want you to imagine for just a moment I have one of those machines, the oxygen machines, right? And I have the whole thing going on in my mouth, right? I'm breathing and I have it on, I don't know what's a good percentage. Just assume 100, although that might be overkill. And so you put it at 100, breathing, right? And as long as your husband or your spouse is giving you your core need, man, you're breathing cool. It's good. It's all good. Because, you're getting respect. It's all good. If you're getting love, women, it's all good. You're getting that oxygen in there. But the moment that you don't get your greatest need is the moment that valve starts changing, doesn't it? And it's less and less and less, and you start feeling it. You're like, man, something's going on here. You're getting less oxygen. You're getting less of the core need that you need, whether that be love or respect. And then what happens is, just kind of expand that metaphor, if we put like a hose here and that's how you get your oxygen, and those two scenarios, what happened is that somebody stepped in their oxygen hose, right? When she saw that book and she reacted, she pressed or she stepped on that oxygen hose, and he's like, whoa, what just happened? When the reaction from him was to be harsh, he just put a foot in that oxygen hose. And she's like, I don't know what happened, but this doesn't feel good. Now, the thing is this, neither one of them are optional. Love and respect is not optional. If you notice in that very passage, they're commands. They're not suggestions. They're like, if you think about it, If you wake up in a good mood, maybe you should think about loving your spouse, or you should think about respecting your man. Like, no, they're commands. They're not suggestions. And it doesn't mean, by the way, listen, it does not mean that he does not have a need for love. That's not what it means. It's just the primary need is for respect. It doesn't mean that she doesn't need to be respected either. Doesn't mean she doesn't need to be respected. That's also a need, but it's not the foundational primary need. When respect is used of women, it usually relates to treatment of her as an equal. Let me show you in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. In the same way, you husbands should live with your wives in an understanding way, since they are weaker than you. Pause here for just a moment. This is not intended, Paul's not intending to be insulting to women. This is just a reality of life, that generally speaking, men are stronger than women. And some of you ladies who are in CrossFit, you're thinking, Jesse, I could take you right now. I could show that scripture is wrong. I've been doing CrossFit. I get it, but I'm not the normal man, generally speaking, men are stronger. No disrespect to the CrossFit women, but generally speaking, men are stronger. But show them, it says, show them respect. Like I said, the respect here is very different than the one that we like to get as men. Show them respect. Why? Because God gives them the same blessing he gives you. In other words, you are equal to her. You guys are equal before the face of God. Equal value, equal in dignity, equal in every way in terms of the way God sees you. Have the same blessings that you have from God. The grace that gives true life, she has it. Do this so that nothing will stop your prayers. Pause here for just a second. And I'm going to talk about this more in the weeks to come, but I'm going to do a quick plug here, and that is, men, just in case you're thinking, I get to treat my wife whatever way I want to treat her, and if it's disrespectful, it's going to be disrespectful, and I don't care. Okay. But see what it says here. Do this so that nothing will stop your prayers. And in some cases, your prayers are being stopped, and they're not being heard, and God is not responding. By this very verse here, the way you treat your spouse matters. And when you mishandle, both of you, and it goes for both, mishandle the opposite sex, the wife, or the relationships you're in, you run the risk that your prayers will not be answered. So how about love? When love is used of man, it relates to being treated with appreciation. Very different than for women. It's appreciation. Titus chapter 2, verse 4, it says, then they can train the younger women, he's talking to women, to love their husbands and children. He's talking about appreciation. That when love is used of men, it's used in the context of appreciation. And most men may not say it, like verbally, but we have to admit, men, that when we're appreciated, we'll do just about anything. We'll do just about anything. Get in front of a bullet if we need to. I said if we need to. Like, if we need to, with a little appreciation, man, we'll do just about anything. But I want you to understand also there's a crazy cycle. It's not your neighbor, it's not your coworker. There's a crazy cycle going on. The crazy cycle is real. What do I mean by that? Let me just unpack it for you. The crazy cycle is this. Without love, she reacts without respect. And without respect, he reacts without what? Say it with me. Love. It's the crazy cycle. We find ourselves in that crazy cycle often. And not just in the relationship with our spouse, we find ourselves in that relationship also with our children. And so many of you can attest to that. You have children, and there's this crazy cycle going on, or grandchildren as well, or grandparents, and there's this crazy cycle unfolding because without love, she reacts without respect, and without respect, he reacts without love. And that's the craziness of it. And some of you walked in here this morning in the middle of that crazy cycle, and that crazy cycle hasn't been just because of one conflict or one discussion you've had with your spouse. It's been going on for the last couple of weeks, months, maybe even years. You're still in the crazy cycle. In a little bit, I'm going to share you how to get out of the crazy cycle, but some of you are in it right now. What does it look like? Well, let's go to the first situation. What happened? He got her a book, a diet book. She sees the book. She gets angry. She gets up. She slams on door. Right? That to him speaks disrespect or it speaks dishonor because he's disconnected. She makes all these grunts. And so he reacts by saying, "You're so insecure and vain." What just happened? What happened to the helpful guy who took the time to go to Amazon, look at the 5-star review, get that book, and put it right next to her recliner so she could enjoy, it sounds silly, a diet book, you know? Because now he's reacting with, "You're so insecure, you're so vain," anyway. And he's screaming that as she's walking out and going to her room and slamming the door. "You're so vain," whatever. You see, without respect, he reacted without love. And sometimes that love is not just the harsh words, it's the absence, withholding the love. What happened in scenario 2? You know, here he is. He walks in. His wife is talking on the phone with mama. And so he interprets that as disrespectful, reacts, puffs, and reacts harshly. And so now that he's not demonstrating love to her because he's being harsh, she reacts, gets into the crazy cycle, and she says, "You can't provide like a real man." Oof. Man, if you're a guy, oof, you can even put oof. That sucks the wind out of your lungs, out of your stomach. You're like, ugh. What happened to this? I want to help my husband. He's stressed out. I just call him mom, so maybe mom can help. Man, all of a sudden, she's reacting. You can't provide like a real man. And this is the insanity. To think that if we attack their deepest desire, we will somehow change our spouse to give us ours. That's insanity. In other words, if I'm critical of him, maybe, just maybe, he'll love me back. Doesn't that sound crazy? It's insane. Oh, if I withhold my love from her, I treat her harshly, maybe, just maybe, she'll respect me more. Good luck with that one. It's insanity. It doesn't work that way. It's not intended to work that way. See what her response, since I'm not being loved, I'm going to be very critical of him. I'm not being loved. I'm going to be very critical of him. What she doesn't realize is Proverbs chapter 12, verse 4, where it says, "A good wife is her husband's pride and joy." Husband is like, "Man, that's my wife. Look at her, man. She's awesome," right? The husband's pride is a good wife, but a wife who brings shame, dishonor, disrespect on her husband is like cancer in his bones. Ugh. I'm not saying it. It's the Word of God that's saying it. So since he says, "I'm not being respected, I'm going to be harsh, brash, I'm going to isolate, I'm not going to give her what she wants, love." What he doesn't realize is Colossians chapter 3, verse 19, where it says, "Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with him." Isn't that interesting? Husbands, love your wives and do not. It associates it love and harshness together. Because the absence of love is the presence of harshness. At least it feels that way. Do not be harsh with her. And that's the crazy cycle, and we get into that crazy cycle on a daily basis. And for some of you, like I said, you've been in it for a long, long time, and you're about ready to get out of it. Which leads me to my third point, which is the gridlock can be broken. The gridlock can be broken. It can. You can break that crazy cycle. But before we learn how to break it, who will make the first move? Because somebody's got to make the first move, just like a good dance, right? Who makes the first move? Who's going to make the move? Well, the one who sees himself or herself as the most mature moves first. Check out James chapter 3, verse 13. If you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life, doing good works with the humility that comes from wisdom. So the question is, which one of you will make the first move? The most mature, right? The most mature makes the first move. Now, when you make the first move, it's not like you make the first move, you're like, I showed respect when you were being unloving, because that's going to get you back to the crazy cycle. Or, I showed you love and you still don't respect me. Now you have to. That's going to get you back to the crazy cycle, But the most mature one is the one that says, I'm going to do it. When I don't get love, I'm still going to be respectful. When I don't get respect, I'm still going to show love. Who does that? The more mature one. The more mature one. And I want to encourage you to do what we do in our household. We've been doing, we're almost married for 21 years. Actually, next week on the 12th is our 21st anniversary. Yeah, I know. Marisa has survived me. And so we've had this one practice for years now. And she does it more frequently than I do because, I don't know, sometimes I get a little bit moody. I leave it that way. And she'll say this. She'll say, have I disrespected you in any way? And my response typically is no, I'm just thinking, I get in my head, I start thinking, and I didn't know this about myself. Apparently, my neutral face is like I'm angry. And so Marisa's like, did I disrespect you in any way? And typically the response is, no, it's just things are going on, and there's stuff that's going on. But she'll ask the question, and she'll typically ask it when she's not feeling loved. Now, in return, what I'll do is I'll ask her the same similar question, which is, have I been unloving in any way? When I feel dishonor or disrespect or somehow highly criticized, like am I showing unlove towards you in any way? And then that's an opportunity for her to say, yeah, as a matter of fact, et cetera, et cetera. So those are good questions, but let's get to the breaking the grit, the grab that the cycle has on many of you, which leads me to my fourth point, which is the energizing cycle must be applied. The energizing cycle must be applied. Ephesians 5:21 says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. We submit to one another out of reverence for Jesus, which means submit to one another's needs in reverence for Christ. Submit to the fact that the other person has needs. You're submitting to each other's needs. Why? Here's the key. This will spare you many headaches. I'm about to say it. I'm getting to the point. Here it is. His love motivates her respect. Her respect motivates his love. And that is the energizing cycle. His love motivates her respect, and her respect motivates his love. Let's go for the first scenario. What if when she saw that book and, she remembered, okay, he is speaking blue, What if, instead of lashing out, leaving the room, slamming the door, what if she would have said, thank you for trying to help? Can you imagine what his response would have been? His response would have been like, yeah, baby, I know you're struggling with it. I want to help you through this journey. I mean, if I got to get into a diet, I don't know that I can do it, but I'll go there with you, See how things change? Thank you for trying to help. Oh, absolutely. I just want to be here for you. I want to be your support. I love you. This has nothing to do with your weight. I still find you attractive. I just want to help you. Breaks the cycle, doesn't it? See, because if she responds with respect, it motivates his sense of love. I'll support you. I'll be here for you. We'll do it together. Scenario number 2, what if instead when he walked in, instead of being brash with her and really harsh and just start putting her down, what if you'd have said, thank you for trying to help, right? In a loving way, thank you for trying to help. Her response might have been, baby, I've seen you really stressed recently, and that breaks my heart, and I just want us to be beyond this stress and be able to just encourage one another. You see how his response and her response, all of a sudden they change? See, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just different. It's just different. It's not wrong. Here's the 5th point, to understand how to protect that oneness, and it's this. There is a reward and a warning to consider. There's a reward and a warning to consider. And this is the reward. God rewards your efforts. He does. He rewards your efforts. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 7, it says, do your work with enthusiasm. Work as if though you were serving the Lord, not as if you were serving only men and women. In other words, just in case you're like, but Jesse, he's not respectable. I can't honor him when he keeps on doing that. Do it unto the Lord. There's something that he does that is worth honor, that is honoring. He's changing. He's in progress, Don't expect, for your man or the man, to be already arrived. Life is not arrival, it's journey. And for those of you who are like, I can't keep on loving on her. Just the way she treats me, the way she talks to me in public, the way she criticizes me in front of people, it's so much disrespect. I can't just love her. Listen, do it as if though you were doing unto the Lord. But do it as if you do it unto the Lord, because he is pleased. Do it for him. In verse 8, remember that the Lord will give a reward to everyone, slave or free, for doing good. God is going to reward you, either this side of heaven or once you're in his presence. If there's a reward that's coming for those of us who step up in maturity and say, I'm going to give the need that they need, even if it's not like mine. What's the warning? Well, God holds you and I accountable. He holds us accountable. Whether it's in a relationship with our spouses or a relationship with our kids or grandchildren or our parents, he holds us accountable. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9 through 10, it says, so we make it our goal to please him. Man, I find beauty in that verse. So when I wake up in the mornings, particularly on Sundays, I'm like, man, I just want to please him. I just want to put it all out there. I don't want to die and then be in the presence of God and be like, oopsie, I forgot to say that. I got too scared to say that because I thought maybe people would get offended. No, live for his pleasure. You wake up, you're like, I want to live for his pleasure, your goal. Whether we are at home in the body or away from it, in other words, whether we're alive or dead in his presence, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due him for the things done while in the body, while we were alive, whether good or bad. So if you can't get motivated by the future rewards or present rewards that he might have in store for you, or you can't get motivated because it's actually a command, then may you be motivated by the warning, which is, we're going to be accountable. And one day we will face the Maker, we will face Jesus, and we will be held accountable. Now, this doesn't mean that you lose your salvation. It's not a salvation issue. This is an issue of just our rewards in heaven. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of weeks. On the one hand, to help you build in a solid foundation in your relationships. for those of you who are in a relationship. And also with the relationships you have with the opposite sex, I want to help build a firm foundation. Then I also want to encourage those of you who are single or single again. Next week, I want to unpack, what does it mean, love? It seems so abstract, right? You think about, love your spouse, or love the women before you. What does that even mean? Does that mean as a guy you have to now be like, oh, honey, baby, start doing the cutesy, high-pitched voice? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. So at this point, all men are like, oh, whew, But we're going to talk more about that. What does it look like to demonstrate love in a way that she can actually receive it? That she's like, oh, okay. What does it mean to speak love, man, in a way that she's like, oh, he really does love me? Because odds are is that we're demonstrating love, guys, in ways that she's like, you call that love? Yeah, working hard is called love, but they don't receive that oftentimes, so there's a way to communicate love that she can receive it and be like, oh yeah, he loves me. To the moon and back, like we put on Facebook, like to the moon and back, right? But there's a way, women, to show respect, and some of you are confused with the whole respect deal because you're like, what does it even mean to show respect? Because it's a foreign concept, right? What does it mean? What does it mean? Well, next week, that's what the focus of the message will be, is to unpack those things. And for those of you who want to go deeper, there's a book called Love and Respect. Highly recommend it for you.